Thank you all for joining today's webinar. It is titled Linear Infrastructure Safeguards for Arboreal Animals. This is organized by AFIA's Linear Infrastructure Safeguarding Nature Aligned Project. I'm Shwarnima Shrestha, Regional Communications Specialist for the Aligned Project, and I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the whole Aligned team. Align Project is funded by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and is implemented by World Wildlife Fund, WWF, in partnership with the Center for Large Landscapes Conservation, CLLC. Align Project aims to expand the development and implementation of effective and high-quality linear infrastructure safeguards in Asia, with special focus in India, Mongolia, and Nepal, with country programs being led by the respective countries. Through webinars like these, Align has been bringing experts from various countries to share their knowledge, case studies, and experiences about linear infrastructure development and natural resource safeguarding to you all. In today's webinar, we'll explore how linear infrastructure affects the arboreal animals, and we have expert panelists who will also discuss mitigation strategies to lower these impacts. I'm really looking forward to listening to our experts today. As most of the conversations around linear infrastructures are centered around other animals, how other animals are affected by linear infrastructure, like keystone species or even prey species. But most of the time, arboreal species fail to become the center of the dialogue. And even while we are talking about safeguard measures, such as the canopy bridges for arboreal animals, which are much less discussed than overpasses and underpasses for other animals. So today we are trying to bridge that gap. And for that, we have an amazing list of panelists with us today who will present their research findings, will share their practical experiences, case studies, and will also provide recommendations for effective solutions. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce our first presenter. She is a very dear colleague and an integral part of Align Project, Dr. Fernanda Teixeira, who is the Linear Infrastructure Ecology Advisor at CLLC. She will be providing an overview of canopy trees research and implementation worldwide. Over to you, Fernanda.
Thank you, Swarnima. I will share my screen here and start my talk. Sorry, it's taking longer than I expected. Oops, sorry. So I will give the introductory talk to this webinar. I'm really happy to be here and be able to start and introduce the topic. I will give a summary of the canopy bridge research worldwide and their implementation. And I'm sorry, I'm not being able to see the. So just pause sharing. Now I have to write. Okay. Sorry. So resuming my presentation, I will present a summary of canopy bridge research and implementation worldwide. Good morning from Brazil and good evening or good afternoon to different regions of the country. So I would like to start first by talking a little bit about what is the problem that linear infrastructure pose to arboreal animals. So linear infrastructure such as roads, pipelines, power lines, and railways, they when they are built, they cut habitats in, like, they fragment these habitats, and so they can cause a barrier, they disrupt wildlife movement, and they can be a source of direct mortality and other disturbances. So arboreal animals, they usually avoid going to the ground to cross canopy openings. Their behavior they usually move using the canopy, and they might prefer even risky human-made infrastructure such as power lines to cross than going to the ground. And this can pose a serious risk of electrocution, for example. Or when they do go to the ground, they are in risk of being road killed, of being attacked by dogs, or being victims of human wildlife conflicts. And here we have the Global Roads Inventory Project database.
Can you
where we have the
show
road.
us your screen, your different screen? We're seeing just the first slides.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm really sorry. Can I? Oh, okay. So
Would you like to try and reshare?
are you still just seeing the first slide?
Yes, it looks like
Now?
it's not in PowerPoint. It
It's
looks
not
maybe
changing
in
now?
PDF.
I'm not being able to stop sharing. I'm really. Can someone share, Priscilla, maybe? I
Yeah,
don't know if you...
I can share.
Or I click in new share and I'm trying. Can you see my screen now?
It's the same screen. Let me go ahead and share your presentation. Give me 1 second, please.
I am really sorry. I don't see the option stop sharing, just new share.
I think I will take it over. All right. Can everyone see the screen?
Not yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Now I can. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So I was introducing the topic. Please move to the next slide. Yes, so I was talking about the types of linear infrastructure and how they can pose a barrier to movement. Go to the next slide, please. And how arboreal animals prefer to move on the canopy and not go to the ground, so they might use risky structures such as power lines and get electrocuted. Please go to the next slide. And when they do go to the ground, they are road killed or attacked by dogs or other type of conflicts. Please move on to the next slide. So here I was talking about the global road network, and yes, and how the areas of high density of roads, they overlap with areas inside, like the global primate range, for example, like looking into primates, but we can talk about arboreal animals in other regions as well. But here I like to show the global primate roadkill database that shows a snapshot of road mortality in different regions, and shows a lot of mortality in Brazil, Southern Africa, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, which are regions of high road density. Next slide. Next slide, yes. And here is an example of a modeling study that overlapped the areas of high conservation value for primates with infrastructure density, and identified priority areas for assessment that might need mitigation for primates in relation to the effects of linear infrastructure. And I'd like to highlight Southern America, different regions in Africa, and Southern India, and Southeast Asia in general. Next slide. Next slide. It's not moving for me. Oh, yes. So what are the solutions that we can talk about that we are going to discuss in this webinar? So next slide. The first solution would be to look into the planning phases before they are implemented. So follow the mitigation hierarchy and try to first avoid impacts before implementation of lean infrastructure, and then only then, when we cannot avoid or for the impacts that remain after we avoid some of the impacts, look into mitigation, restoration, and compensation. Next slide. So for the avoidance, we should try always to avoid the first cut. And in tropical forests and other forests in general, this is very critical to avoid fragmenting forest patches. That should be the first action in lean infrastructure planning. Next slide. So when these impacts are unavoidable, or especially for infrastructure that is already implemented, canopy bridges have been shown to be an effective solution. Next slide. I want to show a bit of a summary of what we know about canopy bridges worldwide. Next slide. So until 2001, we had a very scattered and small literature on peer review publications about canopy bridges. And this is mainly because these projects are many times not research projects, they are conservation projects, mitigation projects. But if we, next slide. If we look into the grain literature, we also don't have a lot of information available. And this changed a little bit in 2021, next slide, when a group of researchers got together and decided to edit a special issue in the Folia Primatologica Journal, in which we supported and incentivized the publication of papers on the topic. And now this group increased. We have other collaborations. We are now working on global review of canopy bridges. And this special issue more than double, you can stay in the next slide, more than double the literature on canopy bridges. And we have way more information now that is shared. Next slide, please. So canopy bridges are implemented in different designs. I will go a bit faster in this part of the designs, just to show and illustrate the different types of designs that are available. And because we had a little bit of technical issues here, so I will try not to get too long on this. Next slide, please. So we have canopy bridges that are natural bridges, not artificial, when you keep the canopy while building a lean infrastructure, or you help trees to grow and form a canopy connection. And this is preferred, and this has been shown that it's used by different species. Lots of species accept this type of bridge, and it's very feasible in small projects or like pipelines or projects with low traffic. And here we have a circle in the project from our colleague Tremi that is supporting this webinar here. Please move to the next slide. And we have, so when we go to artificial canopy bridges, we have single line bridges that are made of just one pole or one rope or rubber lines. Next slide. We have double lines that can be horizontal. So we have two lines side by side, and animals can use both lines, just here like this kinkajou in the top left picture that is using the other rope to help its balance, or the gibbon in the right pictures, where it can use the ropes for balancing or for brachiation and hanging on them. Next slide, please. So we also have double vertical lines where the top line is used by animals, sometimes especially for New World monkeys with prehensile tails. And next slide. And we have designs that can have crossbars to make it more stable, or net designs. Next slide. And our two final designs, we have three-dimensional designs like tunnels made of rope to protect animals that are crossing. And the next slide showing the last ones that are more rigid structures implemented of concrete or metal for animal to cross over larger highways. For example, in the left one, we have a concrete structure for golden lion tamarins in Brazil, and in the right, we have structures for dormouse in Japan. Next slide, please. So we have lots of part of the literature is focused on experimental studies that try to compare different designs. This is one of the parts of canopy bridge research that is really advancing and providing recommendations where we can compare these designs, and ideally when we have them side by side, we can see which designs is preferred by animals. Next one. And so finally, to finalize, I'd like to just summarize some of the, so these types of experiments, they are really important for us to understand what's the relationship between these different locomotor patterns and behaviors of different animals with the designs of the bridges to be able to provide recommendations. So Priscilla, can you just go to the last slide, the second to last, the one with take-home messages, please, so we just can just wrap up. So there are two take-home messages on this. So the previous one, sorry, two take-home messages from this presentation that I'd like to go to say from the summary is that there are no excuses. The previous one, sorry, there are no excuses for not implementing canopy bridges where they are needed, because there are the big variety of projects, from really grassroots projects, community projects in small roads or even roads without traffic or other lean infrastructure, to industrial and like large projects over highways. So there's a different variety, and we can implement them in different ways. And last take-home message is that there's a need for us to monitor canopy bridges and disseminate the results so we can learn with each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for the very interesting and insightful presentation. To all the participants, please feel free to put in any of your queries and comments about the presentation in the Q&A chat box. Our experts will try to address them in the chat box itself, and we also have a separate section for question and answers at the end of all of the presentations. So please feel free to put them out in the chat box. Now I would like to move on to the next presentation. And for that, I would like to introduce another colleague who is also part of the Align project, Dr. Megan Parker. She's the Conservation Project Director at CLLC. Due to the timing of this webinar, she could not join us live today. She has sent us a recorded presentation. It is about APE project. Let's find out more from the presentation itself.
Sorry, everyone. I need to share my screen. Give me 1 second.
Hi, good morning from Montana. I'm Megan Parker. I'm Conservation Project Director with the Center for Large Landscape. So we know, this is public knowledge, the red areas on this map are ones impacted heavily by human use. So this is where our cities are, where our roads and our railways and our power lines are, where our industry lives, and where we have a lot of agriculture. And so this impact on our planet has reduced the movement of terrestrial mammals by, in some, around 50%, 30 to 50%, which means we're encroaching on nature in a way that is inhibiting how animals naturally behave across the globe. And in some areas, obviously, we've got a lot of extinction events, and we are, in our worlds, all of us who are here, we're interested in what we can do to mitigate that, what we can do to restore areas so that we have healthier wildlife and therefore a healthier globe. So this is the grant that I was speaking about earlier. We named the project APE, which stands for Assess, Protect, and Evaluate 3 different large apes and a gibbon in different areas of the world, but facing threats from linear infrastructure. And obviously sites are different, so different kinds of linear infrastructure having different kinds of impact. And the first thing we did, we dove in with a GIS specialist and looked at the critical ranges for these 3 species, which are the orangutan, lowland gorilla, and the hulock gibbon. So we were looking in Borneo, Africa, and India for these species. And we looked at these areas, their range areas and then protected areas that were set aside mainly specifically for this species. And this is in Borneo, this is an orangutan reserve. We use satellite images and we use publicly available databases to gather information on what linear infrastructure exists on the ground right now and what's planned, like what's coming. And so what can we prepare for with more impacts and different kinds of linear infrastructure? What we found was that the public information and what was available for roads and streets was not what was reflected in the satellite images. So we were looking at satellite images and needed to then digitize on this the actual roads that we were picking up from the image. So this is that reserve that you saw in the previous photograph. And these blue areas are agriculture, like basically palm plantations within this orangutan reserve. You can see it's a significant proportion of these protected areas are now under palm monoculture agricultural efforts. In Northeast India, we were looking at part of the range of hulock gibbon. The yellow area is our study area, our study of interest, or our area of interest. And then the red line delineates actually the hulock gibbon range, which we stopped at the border of Myanmar and just looked on the Indian side. And I added this photograph. This is what we can get from Google Earth. So these are all publicly available databases to examine what is actually happening in these species habitats. So for Hulot gibbon, looking at what you can find on Google Earth, it's like, oh geez, you can see a lot of secondary roads going through habitat reserved for gibbon. In Africa, we looked at lowland gorilla range in 3 different countries and different kinds of basically political regimes and ways of managing the land for gorillas. And some of these are exclusive reserves and some of these are just protected areas. And the protected areas on this map are the yellow areas. The red, again, is the range of gorillas in Africa. So for the 3 areas we looked at, basically in the Virunga Massif, there is a lot of agriculture. There's a lot of land change, and there is about 40% of intact forest left. And a lot of like the lighter colored areas on that bottom image are natural brush, and some of that's conversion because of slash and burn agriculture. And the upper left-hand corner, you can see that there's a tremendous amount of land conversion. Some of that is due to agricultural impacts on the land. And then in the Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park, you see that upper right-hand quadrant. That is mainly intact forest that's left and used heavily by gorillas and other native species. So together, these are the 3 maps. This is Borneo, the greater Virunga area in Africa for gorillas, and northeast India and the right. And what you see, instead of pristine forested areas with a lot of connectivity, you see these yellow lines, which are secondary roads and agricultural impacts that are just threaded throughout these reserves and protected areas. Obviously creating impacts on these animals, not only with direct mortality impacts, but a lot of what we'll be talking about during this webinar is needing connectivity across linear infrastructure, and also needing connectivity. Orangutans need a way because they mainly brachiate, as do the Hulot gibbons. They just want to stay in the canopy as much as they can, as opposed to the gorilla, which moves across the ground quite most of the time. But these other 2 species really need canopy connection to behave in the ways that they've evolved to behave and function. And so from our study, some of the results, we've just pulled them out to just mention. We went in to identify gaps in policy and governance that inhibit best planning and avoidance measures in linear infrastructure. And we then mapped the existing and planned linear infrastructure, trying to develop predictive threat models where conservation and governments and decision makers could make steps forward in planning around linear infrastructure to protect ape and gibbon habitat. We wanted to prioritize areas for outreach to enable the avoidance that's necessary where planning is involved, knowing where things are going to happen, and then how to mitigate across some of the linear infrastructure that exists on the landscape. And our conclusions were, we need a lot of canopy bridges. We need ways to restore forest connectivity across agricultural areas. And we need to find a way that gorillas can cross linear infrastructure safely. The experts that we involved in the process are really puzzled by this. We don't know this big ape how it can safely cross a road. There is no known way. For gibbons and orangutans, we know that they will use arboreal crossings. We just need to build more of them and better crossing structures across, especially these large paved highways that are going in, where For hulock gibbon, it is an absolute barrier, and for orangutan, it's a mortality risk as well as a barrier. We were looking at a little bit into chimpanzee habitat, and where some research had been done, picking up the information that chimpanzees will change their behaviors or have a road effect zone behavioral change over 15 kilometers away from a road, meaning that there are very few places in any chimpanzee habitat where they can move freely and behave without being affected by linear infrastructure. We don't know what those road effect zones are for gibbon or orangutan, and we should learn that so that we can plan protected areas better and also plan our linear infrastructure in these areas better. We offered a lot of literature review and a lot of expert opinion, and we held a workshop to bring people together, experts together, to talk about this. And what we found from this, and certainly other studies have found too, is that gibbon, these purely brachiating arboreal species, are understudied and underfunded. And we would like to continue to support work on gibbon and find better crossing structures and put more of them in there in places where we can actually restore forest connectivity to gibbon with these canopy structures, and hopefully also let the forest grow back and have canopy, the natural forest canopy, meet over and across the top of linear infrastructure. I'm grateful for being part of this, and I hope to have conversations with all of you. My email is on the first slide, and they'll be part of the recording. I'm very interested in what this community has to say and think about canopy bridges, and thanks to Fernanda for making this happen. Thank you.
I would like to thank Megan for recording that presentation and sending it out to us. That was very interesting. After two presentations, we have two more very interesting case studies from Bangladesh and India lined up for you, so stay tuned. So for our next presentation, I would like to introduce Marjan Mari. She is the Animal Care and Research Coordinator at Pumproy's EV Bangladesh project. And today she will be sharing the case study on Breathing the Gaps, artificial canopy bridge to mitigate primary mortality. I'm looking forward to this presentation. Over to you, Marjan.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. This is Marzan Maria. I have been working on primate conservation, special focus on Bengal slow loris from past 6 years. And today I'm here to share one of our primate conservation stories with you all by using artificial canopy breeze to mitigate primate mortality in Bangladesh. So before jumping into the main topic, let's talk about primate. We all know primate plays a very important role in our forest ecosystem. They do pollination, they do seed dispersal, and so on. But despite of being a very important element of our forest ecosystem, 60% of primate species are globally in threatened category. Besides habitat loss, food scarcity, poaching, trading, their new arising threats is roadkill and electrocution. In Bangladesh scenario, the forest lands are heavily fragmented and there are few forest patches scattered in northeastern region, southeastern region, and southwest region of our country. And primates here are at high risk of mortality due to roadkill and electrocution. because electric power supply lines and roads are passing through the remaining forest patches. So we conducted a study to know the scenario of roadkill and electrocution, mortality of roadkill and electrocution. And we also applied a probable solution to mitigate this issue. To carry out this study, we selected two forest patches of northeastern region. One is the Lawachara National Park, and there is Satchari National Park. The Lawachara National Park is fragmented by Srimongol and Bhanugach Highway, and Dhaka Sylhet Railway line is still there. And on the other hand, Satchari National Park is fragmented by Old Dhaka Sylhet Highway, and both of the forest patch has power supply lines passing through the forest. And we did this study during on 2015 to 2017. We collected data from primary and secondary sources, and the result was very frustrating. We found that a total of 27 individual fatalities of 5 primate species died during these 3 years, and 15 were caused by road accident, and 12 were caused by electrocution. And in Satchari, we found 14 individual dead, and for Lawachara, it's 13 individual. And the most mortality records were for Trachypithecus fairy, and the lowest record for mortality was rhesus macaque. And now to reduce this issue, we try to take some mitigation measures, and for that we installed 3 single line rope bridges in one of our previous study site, that is Satchari National Park. It's a fragmented forest patch of Raghunandan Hill Reserve Forest, and this area, as I said before, this area is fragmented by the Old Dhaka and Sylhet Highway. And to construct artificial canopy bridges, at first we selected 3 mortality hotspots by reviewing the literature, newspaper, and we took help from local forest staffs to identify the mortality hotspot. And then we installed our artificial canopy bridges. We used polypropylene rope with a 13 centimeter grid for bridge 1 and bridge 2, and for the rest of one bridge, we used polypropylene rope for bridge 1 and bridge 3, and for bridge 2, we used a rubber hose pipe and 100 millimeter satellite dish antenna cable. To monitor the frequency of breeze used by animals, we used camera traps at one end of each bridge, and we collected data from 5th March 2021 to 30 October 2021, and we got data for a total of 115 camera trap days. And the result was really really nice. A total of 1060 mammals were observed using our canopy bridges, and besides 5 primate species, we found that 6 species of rodent and 1 carnivore species also used our canopy bridges. And this bar diagram is showing the use of artificial canopy bridge using frequency by different type of arboreal mammals. We found that fair leaf monkey most frequently used our bridges, followed by cat langur and northern pictal macaque. And yes, we strongly believe that our project is successful because we have made connectivity for at least 8 mammal species, arboreal species, and during our study period, we didn't find any record of electrocution and of electrocution mortality in Satsui National Park. And among the 6 primate species of Satsui National Park, we found 5 species of primate are using our canopy bridges, and our study strongly suggests that we should build more artificial canopy bridges to reduce primate mortality. And here are some pictures of using arboreal mammal using our artificial canopy bridges. And this is a video of Pengus lolaris using our canopy bridges. And this full work is supported by Palmer's EV and Explorer Club grant. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marjan, for sharing this very interesting case study. It was actually very exciting to see the visuals from the camera trap. Now, moving on to the final presentation of today's webinar. Thank you all for staying with us till now, and I hope that you'll stay along till the end of the webinar. So our final case study is from India, and it is about the right to passes, challenges and solutions of linear infrastructure and canopy dwelling primates. And for that, I would like to call upon Dr. Jihosu Biswas. He is the senior scientist at the Primate Research Center, Northeast India, Conservation Himalaya. Over to you, Dr. Biswas.
Thank you. Hi. So my screen is visible. It's
Yes.
audible. So hi
Yes.
everybody. So my presence is all about again on primates. So I started with this: the right to passage, challenges and mitigations of linear infrastructure on canopy dwelling primates. Yes, already, the rapidly changing world. So the predictions of the rapid urbanizations and the development pressure that we have, country like India, where we have more than 1.5 billion people, you can imagine what is the pressure on it. And particularly developments means two essential parts. First one is the connectivities, where more and more roads and railway tracks are now coming up, particularly in our part of northeastern part of India. And the results you can see with this, I shared with the video. Sorry, it is a bit sensitive, but please see the results of all this linear infrastructure. So this is one of the species, endemic species, endemic to India and Bhutan. So already the site has been already displayed by Fernanda. So you can see in the global context that India, as per the report, one of the concentration for all the road kills is particularly from in this subcontinent. So you can imagine. And also another linear infrastructure issue is the power lines. And you can see in the photographs that most of the important species that are now under the threat of these power lines. So my main works on linear infrastructure is on golden langurs, which is essential and endangered and endemic species found only in 6 districts of Bhutan, and also, sorry, 6 districts of Bhutan and 4 districts of India. And its global population is just below 10,000, and India having almost 70% of their populations. But all things are not good enough, because in Indian parts, last 50 years, we have lost more than 50% of its habitat. So ultimately, is southern fragmented parts, particularly you can see this all the small habitat here. These are the fragments that having golden langurs, because all the northern parts we already have all the protected area on board. So these are the main issues, while almost 18% of the global population still live in these areas. And the main conflicts is, roadkills and electrifications, which we are addressing nowadays. So far in last 2 years, we have reported particularly one area. This is our case studies. We have been studied the road kills and found almost 19 cases of road accidents, out of which 7 have fatal injuries, and remains have minor injuries. So persistence lies with these populations, because these are mostly fragmented ones. So with the meta population management. And also we believe that it can be safe, because in between it is a land mosaics of human dominated landscapes, where we can have these ideas of coexistence, where you can live together along with the communities. So between January 2023 and April 24, we did some study, particularly this area. This is a Chakrasila Wildlife Sanctuary, having almost 1,000 population and adjoining fragmented habitats, and these roads are crossing over it. And we did some movement behaviors of golden langur shares, and we found that most of the golden langurs, they are using the road on walking on the grounds instead of using the existing canopies. And to study the traffic behaviors, we also do put some monkey watchers on it, and we found that most of the traffic, instead of our all efforts, they do not, obey the traffic rules and others. They pass on even if the animals are crossing at times. And then we put some of the signage on it and to see what is their behavior on it. But they also ignorant or sometimes disobeyed all the signals, and ultimately run away with high speeds, and ultimately animals get killed. So we did some study the movement patterns and the ranging patterns of these animals which frequently crossing over, and we interact with the villagers and communities to find the pinpointing those potential areas where we can put some mitigation measures. And we come up with this idea of canopy bridges, because we did the same exercise long back in 2003 for Hulot gibbons, although it's a very good method that time we are using that time. But we apply that same experience here for golden langurs. Initially, we tried with rope bridges, but we found the animals do not prefer the ropes. So for first 3-4 months, we try it only 3% of time. So far, the study is concerned, they only use the ropes. So we changed it with the natural materials, that means the bamboos. And we found very encouraging figure that almost for last 1.5 years, we found that 71 cases of incidents of golden langur crossing the bridges. 39% of that came from these bamboo bridges. But the problem with the bamboo bridges, the bamboo is very heavy and is very easy to rotten, because this is a very moist area. So, and there is a possibility of windfall. So to avoid that things, we just use the bamboo, we chop the bamboo into 10 centimeter pieces and insert and threaded it with the thick ropes and put it on the same road. And we found that they are using that things. Although that has also again a problem, because after some time those bamboos, that is sliced bamboos, get dried up and also get rotten, spoil out. So animals are not very comfortable in using that ones. But by that time they are acclimatized with this kind of structures. So we change it with DP pipe, which is more durable, and we just inserted it thick rope on it, and is tied up in the canopies, in the anchor trees, and we found that very encouraging results, that out of these 71 incidents of road bridge cross, canopy cross, almost 32% of that is used by these 5 bridges. So regularly they are using these 5 bridges. Now we are already installed about 8 pipe bridges along this road. And lastly, we tried with another type of bridge, that is the ladder type of bridge, where we use the MPVC pipe along with the gym cable, which is more durable for the wider section of the road. And we install it with the help of the Hydra and other mechanized way. And we put camera trap, and also find very encouraging results of almost 20% out of 71 incidents. Golden Eagle is comfortably using that bridges. So with that, we come up with another thread, trying to address another thread is the power lines. And we found during this 1.5 years that almost 12 incidents of electrocution that happens in that area, out of which 7 mortalities we have recorded. So we have a meeting with the electric departments, and we convince them to see this is the road is very potential, and they come up and they now change all the live wire with these insulated cables, and which becomes a great opportunity for them. Now these electric lines becomes, I put my photographs here because I was so excited. Now are become the bridges for the golden langurs. They are now using this comfortably. So these are some of the mitigation that we have done for golden langur. The data is not published yet. So I am showing you some of the one of the videos of how animals are crossing these things. So you can see this is more stable and more stronger structures where animal can use it, and they are comfortably crossing that one. And this is the electric wire that is insulated now. Then langurs are comfortably using it. And with this report, particularly these areas, now the death rate is minimized up to 50% before earlier one. But again, there are many, the challenges are multi-pronged, because these langurs are now living in the human-dominated landscape. They come in conflict with the human community, village, and others, deplete crops. And people are trying to deter the animals with different methods, out of which some of them are being greatly injured, particularly using the catapults and others. So we did a lot of educations, community meetings, and others. And most important thing is that this is the areas where golden langurs are now found. So you can see in these maps all the notified forested area, and all the green dots are the last 20 years how canopies have come up in the village areas. So you use these ideas and come up promoting the community to have a village corridor so that they can coexist together, like the photograph that is given in the below here. So this is the areas, all the fragments. So we are already planted trees and sapling with the help of communities to have at least 2 corridors, so that all the conflict between the humans and the community and the golden can mitigate with the help of community participations by incentivizing them with some commercial plant trees which have high economic values in their village backyards, they plan themselves of their own, so that they can get the when that plant grows, and it also help the animals to you know get their available food items from this, and by that they can connect between these two as a natural corridors. So, but in the summarizing all these things, we find that the material, particularly the bridge materials, are very important, because the wide of the structures and the materials to use these things, and also the adaptability of the design. That is also because uh, it takes much time, a longer time, because even if you put the base on place, right place, but it takes a lot of time. So you have to attract them with that some of the idea. And third one is the behavioral analysis. We have to put some camera traps as well as the behavioral study, so that you can find whether is there hesitations or grooming within the bridges, so that you can get the confirmation that okay, they are comfortable with the bridge. And lastly, where we are falling short, so I found mitigation funding priorities short-term projects instead of the long-term commitments. So this is one of the major challenges that we have, and also the limited focus on non-charismatic species and the non-protected area. And third one is the habitat connectivity between fragments is often overlooked when you are planning for this linear infrastructure, new infrastructure in the new areas. With that, I thanks everybody, and this is my team and my sponsors and the partners. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Jihosu, for that interesting presentation. And with that, we have finished all of our presentations today. I would like to thank all of our expert presenters for such insightful sharing. And now we are open for questions from your side. I can see that there are a lot of questions in the Q&A section, and our experts are trying to answer that as well. Thank you for being so participatory. So I will try to select few of those questions and ask our presenters to answer them. So I'm looking at the questions from the participants. One of the questions that I would like to put forward is, what is the typical cost of building the canopy bridges, and what are the most effective canopy bridge design? Fernanda, would you like to take that on?
Yes, I'm happy to see there were a lot of discussion in the Q&A section, and the costs can vary. Sorry, can vary a lot from a few $100s. For example, more like simpler projects with simple material that many canopy bridge projects fix the bridges on trees, and this depending on the width of the linear infrastructure or the area can increase the risk of accidents, but this can be feasible for a small scale projects. So this can be as cheap as a few $100s, but it can go to a few $1,000s if you consider the concrete posts and material that last longer, or even rigid structures such as the concrete structures that I have shown. Those are more expensive, and we don't have studies that compare across all of these designs. We have a few studies comparing 2 or 3 designs and giving some information as we answered in the Q&A section. A lot of species use just single line designs that are very simple and cheap, and they are highly used by a wide range of species. But we also lack a need to incentivize that we have more studies comparing a large range of designs.
Thank you, Fernanda. So I'm just looking at more questions. So one is, Assuming arboreal mitigation measures are relatively simple and cost effective compared to crossings and underpasses, why are these structures not widely used? Is it lack of awareness? Perhaps they are not so effective. So just to sum up this question, how can we encourage more mitigation measures for such as the canopy bridges for the arboreal animals? And on the other side, how can we encourage the primates to use the canopy bridges? Jihoshu, can you take this one?
Yes. So first of all, you have to first study about the primate behaviors, whether they are, actually fit with those things. Because for gibbons, we have tried with rope bridges, but hardly they are using that once. So for that, you have to put some attractant on it from natural substances, natural materials like bamboos or something like that. Because in some part of Assam, they tried with uh, some metal structures, but never ever gibbons use that one. So first of all, you have to know the behavioral patterns of the species, and also you have to put some attractant, uh, uh, and mostly it should be in natural attractants. Because sometimes we put lot of bridges and it took us 6 months waiting period, and not a single animal get used that once. So sometimes your credibility is in questions, and later we changed our designs and others. So in my presentation also I show that we use 4 different kind of types of bridges, and when I was studying what type of bridges are using that one. And also most of the projects are very short terms, but you need to know do it for a continuous process, monitorings and other things, and maintenance part is very crucial. So these are some of the issues before planning for anything, any of this canopy bridge project. But and side by side, you have to put some options for the natural canopy bridges. So in the underneath of the bridges, you have to. We generally did planting restorations measures like natural plantations, so that they also come up and give the natural canopy continuity, which may take maybe 5 years or 10 years. But you have to took that options also, and it will attract the animals, because these are the most of the species are fodder species, so that attract the animals, and at the same time they can use the bridges too. So,
Okay, thank you so much, Jiosu. I just want to repeat the first part of the question for other panelists as well. Why, even though it is quite cost effective in comparison to other mitigation measures, why do you think it's not as widely used? Is it lack of awareness, or is there any other reason that it's not as widely used as like other, wildlife-friendly infrastructures? Fernanda or Marjan, any one of you can take that.
Do you want to answer first, Marcia? So I think there is a lack of awareness in general, that agencies don't recognize this as a measure. So we should include canopy bridges in mitigation manuals and guidelines, and disseminate them more so they are recognized. And a part of it, I think it's because most, like the first projects were community groups or conservation groups that started canopy bridges. And this is a different way that this mitigation started in comparison to other, like overpasses. A community cannot build an overpass over a road. This has to be from like an initiative from the road management team or agency and government. So I think now we have to mainstream canopy bridges into road planning and road agencies, increasing regulations for their safety and increasing awareness.
Yes, and that sounds great. So we are running out of time. I would like to put on one last question from one of our participants. It says, how often the artificial canopy has to undergo maintenance for it to be in perfect condition for the use? Marjan, can you please take that one?
Yes, I have said that we used one rope canopy bridges, and we used a polypropylene rope, and till now it's been 4 years. We didn't repair it. So if we use one rope bridge and we use this material, I think it will be more long lasting, because it's it's very hard, and it is usually used to anchor the ship, so it's not unbreakable, and very it needs very less maintenance. We haven't maintained it till now.
So you would like to emphasize more on the quality while it's being built rather than like more on maintenance.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I think we don't have more time to take on more questions. I would like to thank all of the panelists for amazing presentations and also for taking on questions so well. With this, we have come to an end of today's session. Align will definitely bring more of such dialogues for you in the future. Please feel free to provide us with any suggestions and recommendations. We will share the recording of this webinar with you all. And also, if you want to be a part of more webinars like this and have access to other information and resources, you're welcome to join our network called the Linear Infrastructure Practitioners in Asia, LIPA LISO, curated by the Align Project. We have the QR code on the screen. You can scan that to be a part of the listserv. You can also feel free to visit Align's website, alignproject.org, to learn more about the project and also our work and access more resources. With this, I'd like to thank all of our presenters once again, and thank you all of the participants for being with us today. And we look forward to staying connected in the future. Thank you all. Bye.